Grand Rising, I'm Ron Usha, and welcome to show number 24 on Conversations on Art, a show where friends get together to talk about their art, their creativity, and hopefully we can learn from each other and maybe even inspire each other. Today I have on the show Jiba Molei Anderson. Grand Rising, Jiba.
Grand Rising, how are you doing?
I'm very well. Um, I found out about Jiba because I saw a post of his artwork, his creative artwork in comics, and I contacted him, and I was so fortunate he got back to me, and here we are now. So thank you very much for that.
You're very welcome. I'm always open and willing for an interview. I'm an attention whore. I and I have, I always have something to promote. So thank you very much for reaching out to me. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Jiba sent me a short bio, which I'm going to read out. Then we're going to get straight into questions. Jiba Molei Anderson, the CEO and Creative Director for Griot Enterprises, a publishing company, visual arts communication studio, a veteran of creative industries, working as a visual communicator, writer, and educator. Anderson teaches courses in multimedia at Chicago State University and the Computer Systems Institute, an expert in print design, publishing, and branding. Anderson has worked as a graphic designer and art director for companies such as Onyx Path Publishing, the Smithsonian National Museum of African Art, and Rogue Matter. Jiba, can you please go into the name, the Griot Enterprises?
Yes. So why did I choose Griot? I chose Griot because I tell stories. And that's what our company is all about. We are all about telling great stories featuring characters of color. The origin of the name came about way back in 1997 when myself and a couple of other artists from Detroit at the time, including the artist Kenji Jumani Marshall. I need to mention him because I will be talking about him later. But we were all at the Motor City Comic Con, and it was 1997. And it was at that point we kind of decided to start our own company. We did not want to wait to be, shall we say, discovered by any of the big names, that sort of thing. We wanted to discover ourselves. This was pretty much like a good 3 years into the comic revolution that Image Comics and Black comics like Milestone Media and Tribe and Brother Man started. So we were inspired to become independent and move in that direction. And so when we decided to create a company, we were thinking about a name. And I immediately said the name Griot. For a couple of reasons. Number one, it was going to be the name of a magazine that myself and some other guys were talking about doing, but of course never came to fruition because at that time, young artists just talking about young artist stuff and blah, 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 but never really, really putting the effort forward to making it happen. So I knew that name was lying around, number one. Number two, it was appropriate because we were predominantly African and African-American creators, and we wanted to tell great stories, and we wanted to lead into our African diasporatic identity. And what better word to describe what we wanted to do than the word griot? And in addition to that, I also knew that griot was not a common word, especially in the Western-speaking world. I knew for a fact that people would mess up that name. And indeed they have, calling it G-Riot, Griot, that sort of thing. In other words, I knew that our name would be a conversation starter. And so people would have to start talking about our company, even in the initial stages of what does griot mean, or how do you pronounce it? And that automatically starts the conversation, and that automatically gets you involved, and that automatically allows us to start telling a story. And so hence the name Griot Enterprises, and it stuck. I like it. Although these 20 years going on, it describes what, you know, we have done and what we still do.
How important was it for you to go out on your own and be independent?
It was extremely important. It was important because for myself, from the age of 10, I wanted to make comics. I didn't necessarily want to draw Superman or Batman or the X-Men or Justice League. I wanted to make comics. I wanted to make my own comics. I wanted to have my own vision out there. And I knew this from the age of 10. Not a lot of kids, you know what I mean, have that understanding about themselves at the age of 10. But I knew that I wanted to get my voice out there. When I started breaking into the industry in 1994, I still had that mind of wanting to create my own comics, and also emboldened by, again, the emergence of Image Comics on the independent scene, and the freedom and the creativity and the financial reward of that, to the emergence of Milestone Media in that same period, which also showed that I could create books and characters that looked like me and that represented my viewpoint and could make money at it. I was extremely emboldened by that. But at the same time, I also knew, and I also know the story of Image, that they didn't come out of a vacuum. These were like the 7 top artists from Marvel Comics going off and doing their thing. So my thinking was that, well, I may have to try and find work at other comic book companies, you know, to build up my name, to go ahead and do my own thing before I do my own thing. So in 94, when I made my first foray into the industry, I put together a portfolio and started shopping it around at the conventions. And this was like Chicago Comic-Con, 1994. Yes. And I was, meeting everybody, so on and so forth. But I made a beeline directly to Milestone Media, because I said to myself that if I am going to have to start at a comic book company to build my name, I'd rather start at the company that inspired me to really get into the game. You know what I mean? And I'd rather, you know, make my bones at a Black-owned comic book company. And so I went over there, and it's a beautiful thing, met my heroes, you know, meeting the architects of Milestone. And in the beginning, you know, it's like, okay, 2 things. First of all, I'm being a fan, sign my books, please. Thank you. All right, now I'm an artist. I want to make comic books. I want to work for you guys. And I was saying this in front of Dennis Cohen. Dennis Cohen is a legend in the comic book industry. I was a fan of his from the time when he was drawing The Question, written by Denny O'Neil in the early mid 80s. So I was a big fan of his. And also with him being one of the architects of Milestone, I'm like, in my mind, I'm gushing, but I'm trying to keep it professional. So showing him my portfolio, and he's taking time to look at my portfolio. And in the beginning, I had some Batman and Icon pages, and then I had a little Black Panther thing. And then at the end of it, I had 3 pages from my own creation at the time, which was not the Horsemen, by the way. Horseman comes later. But I had these pages, and he looks through my portfolio. And at the end, he focuses on the pages, you know, of my own creation. And he looks at me and he's like, you want to make your own comics, don't you? And I was like, again, in my mind, I was like, first of all, how you gonna know my heart like that? But in my outside voice, it's like, yeah, I do, but I know that, you know, I should like start working at another company before, you know, to get my bones, you know what I mean? To get used to the ins and outs and the ins of the industry before I go off and do my own thing. And so I'm paraphrasing that, and I'm saying that in a much more articulate manner than I did back when I was 20 in the you know what I mean, in the 90s. But so Dennis, he says to me, he's like, look, if you want to make your own comics, go ahead and make your own comics. No one is stopping you. But if you want to work for Milestone, these are the things you need to work on. You need to work on this, that, the third, right? Work on this, and then at a certain point when you're ready, give me a call. And he gave me his business card, which was like the golden ticket. And inevitably, invariably, Milestone Media became my sort of my mentors indirectly, you know, just my guides, my cheerleaders, if you will. From Dennis Cohen saying, you know, you should do your own comics, you know what I mean, taking the time to talk with me. I had this on and off relationship with Milestone for years, and it really kicked in 2005. This is after Griot is established. This is after the HORSEMEN has been out. The first miniseries has been out. This was after the classic mode of publishing. In terms of the classic mode of publishing, I couldn't even do it anymore. Like you know what I mean? I didn't have the money to print books and that sort of thing. And then the first iteration, when we launched, things went kind of weird, haywire. So I was in an interesting place. This is 2005, and this is the beginning of print on demand. And in 2005, I was actually writing another graphic novel. I was writing for another company, which would eventually become Rogue Matter. And I was writing a graphic novel for them. And I was invited to come out to San Diego Comic-Con and under their banner. And so what happened was that, you know, we had some preview books of the project I was working on. I also decided to make some postcards, some pluggers of Griot Enterprises stuff, because even though, you know, it was in this upheaval, I did not say that I was done. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like I was just beginning in the industry, right? And I felt like I didn't take it far enough. And I felt like the HORSEMEN had so much, you know, they had so much more to do. And also at the time, I didn't feel like I made an impact. So I had these postcards, right? And one of them, of course, was the HORSEMEN. And so I'm at this convention selling this other book, right? And I had these three brothers come up, you know what I mean, about it. And I was promoting the book, you know, that I was working on at the time. It was called Hip Hop Chronicles. And it's like, yeah, I'm the lead writer, art director of this. And also I have this company, Griot Enterprises, and I also do this book, The HORSEMEN. These three cats was like, yo, you the creator of The HORSEMEN? The one dude, because his other buddies had walked away for a second. So the one dude looks, is like, yo, you're the creator of The HORSEMEN? Yo, hold up. He went to his other ones, yo, the dude that made The HORSEMEN, this is the dude. And they came up to me and they were like, yo, The HORSEMEN is so dope, man. This book was so dope. And so that was my first brush with like fandom. Do you know what I mean? And it was the thing of like, wait, you know, because these three issues came out in 2002. You know what I mean? And big upheaval. And I'm like, who really read it? You know what I mean? That sort of thing. Like, but with this right here, with these three guys gushing over it, you know what I mean? It's like, what? Y'all actually liked it? Like, y'all actually appreciate it? Thank you very much for that, right? I was like, wow. So later on in that convention, I see Dwayne Mcduffie, who the late great Dwayne Mcduffie, who was one of the milestone architects as well. And this was during the time when he was writing Justice League Unlimited, which was like the best written cartoon I had seen in ever. You know what I mean? And of course, architect of milestone, fan, you know what I mean? Fan like master. So I see him, and at a certain point, and I've got the postcards, right? And I see him and I'm like, yo, again, just like I did with Dennis Cohen, I was like, yo, okay, fanboy thing first. First of all, big fan of yours, like been down with you for since Milestone, like you're killing it on Justice League Unlimited. I'm loving it. You know what I mean? I just wanted to be a fan, right? And also letting him know, because of you guys, you inspired me to do my own comics. And so we've been down for a while. And again, this is the beginning of print on demand. And I'm like, and so we're coming back a little bit, but this is what I do. This is what we do. And I pulled out, made sure I had the HORSEMEN postcard. And I was like, if you get a chance, check out the website, tell us what you think, right? And so Dwayne looks at the card. He's like, wait a minute. He's like, Griot Enterprises? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, the HORSEMEN? That's you? I'm like, yeah. He's like, dude, I love that book. I thought that book was amazing, Like, I was wondering what happened to you guys. And it was because of him. It was literally because Dwayne Mcduffie said he was a fan that let me know that I'm not done. I'm nowhere near done, If Dwayne Mcduffie is saying that he's a fan, then I have to put out more content, because I saw that I was making an impact. And yeah, it was because of those moments, and definitely because of Milestone, that's why all of that, because of that, that's why we're actually here talking today. Because I was very, very, very lucky to be mentored and encouraged by my heroes, and encouraged by some of the greats in the business. I was really lucky to be connected to so many history makers in the game. And so I feel like in this industry, I'm supposed to be here because the path was always open to me to be here, right? And so now, at this point, because next year will be the 20th anniversary of the HORSEMEN first issue. Now it's like, yeah, now's the time. Now I'm here. Not only am I here, but also it is my time to be that mentor and be that encouragement that was given to me, some 20 plus years ago. So now, in addition to being a creator, now it is my, I'm in the season of being mentor as well, because that's what I'm supposed to be. You know what I mean? And passing on the tradition.
Isn't it extraordinary sometimes how we can produce work and we just don't realize who we touch? We don't realize that little things that we do that we may disregard or not give it so much importance, but out there it really means so much to other people.
Right. That's the thing, And when I go on Facebook, right, and I go to these some of these groups, specifically groups who call themselves, Black creators, or blurs, Black nerds, or Black, fans or, you know, whatever of the medium. And they keep lamenting about the lack of representation, or they keep lamenting about, you know, how the business is dying and all this Strom und Drang, all this doom and gloom. I look at that and I'm like, are you guys serious about this business? Are you really serious about this game? Do you really know what you're talking about? Have you really seen what's out there? Because if you have seen what's out there, you would not be talking about this doom and gloom. You would not be talking about, you would not be begging for DC or Marvel for representation, because it's out there, right? Not only is it out there, right now it's thriving. You know what I mean? It's actually a beautiful time to be a Black creator, to be a Black comic book creator. It's a liberating time where we're actually liberated. You know what I mean? Like, the digital landscape has liberated us, right? I say this, there are no gatekeepers. You know, some people disagree with me, but I'm like, no, there's not. If you want to do it, you can do it. The thing is, however, that you have to really do it. And what I mean by really do it, it's way more than talk. You have to create. You have to be smart. This is a business. You have to understand the business. You have to acknowledge the business. You have to be aware of the players. You have to be out there, right? You cannot be a passive participant. You have to be active in there, right? And you have to have that knowledge. So it annoys me, actually. You know what I'm saying? When I see these arguments, or with you know, creators of color, and I say specifically Black creators because we are Black. You know what I mean? We are African descended. You know what I'm saying? These are our people. And so it irks me when I see us not really celebrating us, or I see us questioning whether or not if we should celebrate us in order to get some financial recompensation, right? And it irks me because while these guys are having these conversations, quote unquote, about the Strom und Drang, there are those of us over on the other side who are thriving, who are making deals, who are selling books, who are moving the needle, right? And I feel that it's irksome to me because, you know, we are doing the things that these other peoples are talking about that wish would happen, right? And what I have been realizing, especially while I'm still producing this HORSEMEN book, right? And after having these Kickstarters and being successful at it, I realized that I have to not listen to them and not engage with those who are talking about the Strom und Drang. I have to follow actually my colleagues who are over on the other end, you know, making work, thriving, handling their business, and really not engaging, you know what I mean, that other audience, right? It just goes that way. But it is difficult for me because of, like, I just cannot stand by and see disinformation spread. I can't do it. You know what I mean? As we both know, on both sides of our pond, we have been dealing with, you know what I mean, an epidemic of disinformation, right? And so for me, I cannot sit by and abide our people, right? Continuing that trend. So that's why it irks me. So it's like that weird balance about it. I don't know how to I don't know how you would break that down. Maybe, maybe I'm thinking too much about it. Maybe I'm wasting too much time. But yeah, that's just like my thoughts on the situation. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did, yes. And I think it's so important to see Black people as comic book superheroes. I grew up, reading some comic books, and it's so very rare. And I'll tell you through one instance. I was watching the film Black Panther.
Right.
I was in the cinema.
Right.
And it's that part where I think it's Okoye from the Milaje, Dora Milaje, when she throws off her
wig,
and throws it, and the cinema erupts. Yeah,
yeah.
And I was telling a friend about it, and he said he didn't like the movie, and I said, well, the movie was more than a movie because you saw Black dark-skinned women being extraordinary, powerful, beautiful, super intelligent warriors.
Yes.
And I saw one young person who watched the movie, then researched African warrior women in Africa.
Right.
That's how powerful it is.
Yes. That's exactly what it is. I have said since that movie came out, I said that Black Panther was actually the first time that I feel a majority of Black folk felt the shall we say the luxury of imagination. That was the first time that they were able to see, themselves in all their glory, free and unfettered. You know what I mean? Like with the imagination of the other, quote unquote, taking it to the extreme, right? Now, for myself and other Black creators and I wouldn't say a whole bunch. Definitely for myself, because I was living in the space that Black Panther was expressing. I've been living in that space my whole artistic life, right? So and actually it was like for about 35 seconds when I saw Black Panther, I was like, oh, I don't need to see a Horseman movie now because this is exactly what I would have done with the Horseman movie for 35 seconds. And then I was like, wait a minute, no. I'm like, yeah, that's dope. That's great. That's fantastic. Now the world is ready for the Horseman. That's exactly how I looked at it. And I'm saying that not out of arrogance. I'm saying that because when the Horseman first was launched way back in 2002, right? From the jump, I had people interested in it from, in terms of like, turning it into cinema or animation, whatever. But this was like 2002, 2003. There's no language for what I was doing at that time. Definitely not on a wide screen, right? Like, and there were some people who tried, like BET approached me twice to try and do something with it. I was signed to William Morris Agency for a brief moment. But again, this was 2002, 2003. And what I was doing with the Horsemen, people didn't quite understand it yet. You know what I mean? Like their minds weren't unlocked at that point. So, because we had Blade in 1998, and then we had The Matrix with Morpheus, you know what I mean? And we had these little instances, but we didn't have that, that iconic moment. And as we went on, granted, I call it, for me, I say like Blade, the Luke Cage, and then Black Panther, I kind of liken it to blaxploitation movies. Like first there was Sweetback's Badass Song, then there was Shaft, and then there was Superfly. So like Blade was Sweetback's Badass Song, right? And then Luke Cage in 2015, that was the Shaft. You know what I mean? And so Black Panther then was the Superfly, and it really exploded, you know? And so now this is the first time a lot of Black folks are like, oh, Afrofuturism, oh, we're free, oh, this, oh, that, you know? And like, we need more. How do we create more? What is more? And now it's like, well, now welcome to my world. Welcome to my mind state, right? Now you're ready for this, right? Because Black Panther opened the door. And I appreciate Black Panther for opening that door. I appreciate the fact that Black Panther actually became the property that I always knew that it could be, but did not reach its potential or begun to reach its potential until 1997 when Christopher Priest wrote the book. You know what I mean? And then going on from works of Reggie Hudlin to Ta-Nehisi Coates, you know what I mean? So eventually Black Panther became the property that I knew it could be. The Horsemen was the property that Black Panther was supposed to be from jump. I'm saying that in the sense of when I looked at Black Panther as a kid coming up as a young lad growing up, I looked at the untapped potential of it and I was frustrated by it. And so ultimately, the Horsemen was sort of my response to that frustration in terms of I wanted to talk about a real Africa. I wanted to talk about a futuristic Africa. I wanted to talk about an Africa free from the famine porn, you know what I mean, that was prevalent at the time. I wanted to, you know what I mean? I wanted to talk about a modern Africa, right? And then take that even further. And that was a response to the fact that up until basically 1997, you never had a Black voice writing the voice of T'Challa. Right? That's where the frustration lied. And so the Horseman was kind of coming out of that. Now, with the success of Black Panther, you know, and again, appreciative of it, now we are ready for more. And we've been getting more, right? We've been getting Lovecraft Country, which was amazing. We've been getting Watchmen. We've been getting, you know, movies like Project Power and other things. And we will be getting on the horizon, we will be getting Bitter Root from some of my other colleagues, you know, in the comic industry. We will be getting Crescent City Monsters. We will be getting The World of Asunda and Niobe, She Is Life, and that sort of thing. So it's open, you know what I mean? It's open. And now is the time. You know, it's always been the time, but now is really the time. And it is the time if you understand it, you revel in it, and you want to push the needle forward. It is not the time if you keep lamenting about where is this, where is that, blah, 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 because it is right in your face if you just open your eyes and look to the left or look to the right instead of looking forward.
Can you take us through what you've been doing at the moment? I know you've been doing a Kickstarter campaign. How did that go? How did you set that up, and where are you now?
Well, first of all, the campaign was successfully funded. Over, what was it, about 100 and we're like 130% funded. I think that's the number. Yes, 130% funded. This was my third Kickstarter campaign of the year, my third successful Kickstarter campaign of the year, which was amazing. This one was also the most important one because this one is the Horseman. The other two were for my anthology series, 4 pages, 16 bars, a visual mixtape, which celebrates independent works from creators of color. So those were successful, and that was great. But this was important because the Horseman was my property, and also because like 11 years ago, I tried doing a Kickstarter with the Horsemen and it wasn't successful. And so it took me a long time to learn and observe how other people did Kickstarters and what was their success rate. How were they successful? Why were they successful? And so doing this one, and with it being successfully funded, was such a satisfying moment for me. In addition to that, this was the first book that I was able to like commission other artists to do covers for. And it definitely the artists that I wanted, you know, one of which being Kenji Jumani Marshall. I told you that name was coming up again, right? One of the original Griot crew. I was able to get him to do a cover for the book as well. This book also is a story. There's a story in it written by my godbrother, Kofi Boone, who also happens to be my inspiration for the character Ogun in the Horsemen as well. And so Kofi and we have been comic book fans since we were little kids. And we were coming up with little ideas and stories since we were little kids. And so to have him, you know, at this point, like he's writing a story about Ogun. Ogun is writing about Ogun. And you know, and I'm illustrating it and I'm putting it in the book, right? You know, all these childhood dreams coming to fruition, all these childhood connections coming to fruition. And then to have these other two artists that I've commissioned as well, Neon Pen, aka Aries Art, and Sean Hill. These are two of the baddest Black comic book artists coming up today. These dudes are the next. These are the next legends. And I've been looking at their work for quite some time. As a matter of fact, Sean is doing some work for Marvel Comics now, right? So I was able to get him right before he got some of the big, you know, some of the one of the corporates looking at it. But to have that vision and to be able to get those artists together to have them realize my vision, because granted, yeah, I do everything myself. I write, I draw, I color, letter, all that stuff. That gets also boring at a certain point. And I also feel that a mark of success, especially in terms of comics, is if people can, this is the artist to me speaking, like to get other artist renditions of your characters. And I feel that if they get them right, they look great in that artist rendition, then you're like, oh, my designs really work. You know what I mean? So to have those three artists turn in this astounding work is just, I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. So right now, at this point, where I'm at is that I'm actually coloring these pages that I have to get done. I'm laying out the book. I'm finishing up the lettering and all that other stuff. So I'm still finishing up creating the book, right? But everything has been successfully funded. I'm going to start sending out rewards for that. Well, the bonus rewards I'm going to send out in the next couple of days while I finish up this project. But honestly, with this one, with the Horsemen Manifest Destiny, I'm having a blast with it. It's definitely the best work of my career to date, you know, because this is also the book where I had something to prove, you know, and really it was something to prove to myself, you know. So this one I'm feeling proud of, really proud of it.
Can you talk about the importance of working with people who get you? when you're on that same wavelength and you're on the ride together.
It's a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing. It is excuse me. It's I liken it to a band. You know what I mean? I've always wanted to be part of a band. I've always wanted to be part of a crew. I've always wanted to be, part of an outfit that's in sync. You know what I mean? Like when it all comes together, they're perfect, right? Like hands down, my favorite pop band of all time is Level 42. I love Level 42. Like that, yes, that group, Mark King, Mike Lindup, the late Boone and Brother Phil Gould, like those cats, like when they got it together, you know what I mean? It's beautiful. It's harmony. It's the same way for me, working with people that get the vibe. Like, for instance, working with Jude W. Meyer, who is actually the writer for the Horsemen Mark of the Cloven, the third book in the series, of which the other 2 volumes will be coming out. Well, one of them will be coming out next year. But working with him, and he came to me and he wanted to, he wanted to play in my sandbox because he thought that the concept was interesting. And when we started working together and concepting together, it's like, it's like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? That's dope, and he would ask me questions of like how this world works, how this works. And we actually helped flesh out, he actually helped out and is instrumental in terms of helping to flesh out the world of the Horsemen, actually take it even further where I wanted to go. He brought a little bit of weird fiction into the world of the Horsemen, which is actually perfect for it since it's a world of mythology. Like I came in and, I was doing like I was doing the science, I was doing the, politics, I was doing the conspiracy theory. He brought the weird in the weird fiction in that. And with that, he also brought in fantasy into the world of the Horsemen. And with a book that's based on mythology, you need all of that. You know what I mean? So he also helped me to like, okay, oh, we're going cosmic with it. Oh, word. Okay, I get to be real Jim Starlin about it. Let me get funky with this. Let me really get into all these different dimensions. Let me really get into the mechanics of the crossroads. Let me really get into African spirituality and take that, you know what I mean? Let me go ahead and make the concept of the ancestors like, no, the ancestors are real and they are these meta gods that, they manage the crossroads, you know what I mean? And you have to pay them, you have to pay the price to cross, to navigate the crossroads. And Ishu didn't pay his bill, and so he's got to do a task for, you know what I mean, for the, he allowed me with that aspect to really get mythological and really like talk about that and really unlock the spirituality of that. That's a beautiful thing. With the artists that I picked, with Kenji, Aries, and Sean, I picked them to do covers because we all have a similar artistic sense. We have a similar artistic sensibility. In the terms of their influences, I see their influences. I enjoy their influences, right? I have slightly different influences, comic book wise, but it all flows into like my view of what comic books should be, right? So artistically similar but different, again, on that same wavelength, and when I talked to them, I gave them a brief, you know what I mean? It's like, and it was a creative brief, but I was being very open, and depending upon who I was talking to, I could be more open than with others, more open-ended with others. So for instance, with Kenji, like I've known Kenji since high school. You know what I mean? So and so I know Kenji as an artist, and I knew exactly what to give him. I was like, yo, all right, I'm giving you the Ogun cover. This is the story. You're doing the OG Ogun. It's going up against the Mawari, blah, blah, blah. Do your thing. And, you know, and again, it was like this little back and forth. It's like, okay, what about this? I was like, well, maybe, you know, but there was that trust involved, right? And again, with Sean, you know, he was the first person I commissioned. And I was just like, I just want you to do your thing. And, you know, I need a couple pieces of the Horsemen. And then with Aries was the newest cat to the table. And with Aries, you know, looking at his stuff, and one of the things that I loved about his stuff is that as a designer, right, we had a lot of similar sensibilities. Like I saw him, you know, how he approached design, how he approached color, how he approached the business of comics. And so I saw a lot of myself in him. And so it was like, you know, starting off being a little bit of a guide. And then at a certain point, it was like, yo, would you want, you know, you want to do a cover for me? And he's like, oh my God, you know, I would do it for free. And I was like, no, you're not doing it for free. You know what I mean? What's your rate? And he's like, no, whatever you want to pay me. I'm like, no, what's your rate? Because I want to make sure that I pay you fairly, right? And he gave me his rate, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I agree with that. That's my rate, so I'm pay, you know, pay fairly. And again, it was that thing of trust, of like, I'm trusting you to do your thing. I hired you to do your thing. All I'm telling you is the basic scenario, right? But this is what. So, but I want you to do your thing. So it was that trust level, being an art director, kind of knowing what these artists could bring to the table, and also the relationships based upon it. It was so much trust, and it was so much in sync that, okay, with Sean's cover, it's got this nice purple hue, you know what I mean? With Aries' cover, it has these hue, you know, lovely rose hues, right? With my cover, it's got these greens going on. So I was just like, in my mind, I was like, yeah, I need a warm color cover to offset this. I'm trusting Kenji to knock it out. It's going to happen. Like, I just knew, like, Kenji was going to give me the warm cover. And sure enough, when I got the cover yesterday, it was perfect tone for it. I was like, and there it is. You know, as a matter of fact, I'm going to be sharing this cover gallery on Facebook, like, pretty soon, as soon as we're done with this interview. You know what I mean? Just to show it. But you know, collaborating with other artists, you know, seeing what they bring to the table, especially when it's a situation when it's your property, right? Because this is not necessarily a DC or Marvel thing where it's like, you know, at this point, anybody can draw Batman, anybody can draw Superman. You know what I mean? People aren't necessarily thinking about the creator of Batman or Superman, because, yeah, you don't hear people talk about Bob Kane or, you know, Siegel and Schuster. They just talk about the character. But with the Horsemen, you know, it's still me, right? So it's not a faceless entity, right? So to vibe, you know, with these different artists, yeah, like you're vibing with me. And so to be able to find people that vibe with me and that actually vibe with my property, you know what I mean? And they get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, they understand it. Like, I don't have to necessarily hold their hand with it. Like, they get it right away. And what they add to the mythology, to the new mythology, I mean, it's invaluable. It's a beautiful thing. And I appreciate that. And I don't look a gift horse in the mouth, and I love it, you know, totally.
I love what you did there, the empowering another artist by saying, what's your rate? It's like, value yourself.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Because you have to, especially in the art world, in this art business, you know. Artists are approached how should I put this? Artists are disrespected on a daily basis by people who approach them, whether the people know that or not. They are disrespected because of the fact that the people that approach them, 9 times out of 10, most of them don't understand what goes into making art. They just understand it's like, oh, you love to do this. You know what I mean? Like, you would do this for free anyway. So why don't you like do it for almost free for me? And I always say this, yeah, I do it free for me. And even then, when I'm making up my art because this is my profession, I'm not doing it for free because, you know, I love it, even though I love what I do. I'm doing this to put food on my table. So that means if I'm doing it for free for myself, you have to pay me. And then I take it even further, you know, where some people's like, oh, why don't you cut, I like to call it, what did I used to call it? You know, the brother rate, you know, they're like, oh, come on, help a brother out. You know, why can't you give me a deal? And I say it like this. My family pays my full rate and I offer them deals. I come from a long line of artists, entrepreneurs, and educators on both sides of the family, right? Like, you know, I have uncles who are fine artists. I have cousins who are dancers, you know what I mean, who are musicians, right? My father is an architect. You know, I'm the oldest of 4. All 3 of my siblings were all creators. You know what I mean? My younger brother is a graphic designer. My youngest brother is a photographer. My sister is a hair and makeup artist. Okay. My mom has been paying me to make artwork since I was like 12, 13. In lieu of like allowances, my mom had a hustle where she was making t-shirts, you know, like doing embroidered t-shirts, and she wanted African faces painted on them. I was painting those faces. I paid for my prom doing that stuff. So that means you coming to me for a deal, no, you need to pay my rate. And if you can't pay my rate, that means that your product that you're doing is suspect and I don't need to be attached with it anyway. So you can move on. I'm gonna be all right because I am going to get more work and I'm going to find someone that values what I do. Because of the fact that first and foremost, I value what I do. And I really have to thank my father, yes, but more importantly, I have to thank my mom for that particular aspect of my career in navigation as an artist, because of the fact that she was one of my first patrons. And she showed me, you know what I mean, the value of what my work is worth, which kind of annoys me now at this age when she tries to get me to do free stuff for other people. I'm like, come on now. You know, but as her being a Liberian woman, you're like, oh, look at my son. Look, like, nah, you know, that sort of thing. But I joke, but yeah.
You mentioned the character Ogun. Can you talk about the spirituality and the orishas?
Yes. So the horsemen, like, how can I describe this? Okay, so I was introduced to the orishas when I was in college. And I was introduced to the orishas through the theater, because I used to do acting. I used to act a lot, especially in college and whatnot. And so we were doing a play by Wole Soyinka called The Lion and the Jewel. And part of our research for the play was, you know, we got this list of the orishas. And that was the beginning of like an interesting spiritual journey. The Orisha stuck with me. I had always wanted to do a series, an illustration series of African gods and goddesses. And so I had that with me through college. And then when I went to grad school, at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, I was taking a class on Afro-Caribbean art and ritual, taught by the late Marilyn Holberg. And she was an authority on, she studied, Vodou and Santeria, religions of that nature. And this is when I was beginning to develop my thesis. And so my thesis started out being a book. It was an idea that I was going to do a book, which actually became an installation, on the history of African American superheroes and tying it in with the Orishas, finding like their link, with the Orishas. And I was going to write, illustrate, write, design, and in some cases illustrate this book. And so I was studying more and more, learning more and more about Santeria, learning more and more about the Orishas, learning more and more about Vodou, so on and so forth, and working on this book. And then it came to the point where I had to illustrate these Orishas. And so, again, the 35-second hesitation for a second, I was like, okay, so how do I illustrate them? Do I illustrate them in traditional African dress? But this is a book about comic books. So what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Jack Kirby, Thor, Norse mythology, superhero. That's what I do. I will Jack Kirby, the Orishas, and turn them into superheroes. And this was also during the time when, after Griot was called into being by saying, we're going to work on Griot, and people were like, okay, what's going to be your first book? And it was going to be another idea, actually the idea that Dennis Cohen saw. But once I came upon the idea of doing the Orishas as superheroes, I'm like, that idea is way too cool just to be a thesis project. That's going to be my first book. And in that's where another spiritual journey began. And it was a spiritual journey based on researching Pan-African cultures, right? Researching not only, because first of all, I'm not Nigerian, I'm Liberian. So the Orishas are not my, if you will, they are not my gods, quote unquote. But they still are, in a way. I mean, because how can you claim it? I mean, it's the same thing with Vodou, right? It's the same thing with Santeria and Candomblé, It's the same way with, the Fon or the Igbo or, the Zulu or the Liberian or the Vai, you know what I mean? Like these are all our stories, you know what I mean? We all have a commonality in this, right? We all have this is tied to our spirit. And in populating the world of the Horsemen, yes, at the core, it's the Orishas, but that was just the beginning, you know what I mean? Then I went, and I'm still discovering more, right? And not only more African faiths, but also, world mythology. I've been a fan of mythology since I was a kid. And I call the Horseman universe the new mythology because I am creating a mythology. Like, the story of the Horseman begins literally with the beginning of creation, right? And it is a mythology populated with the mythologies of the world. Now, I'm not trying to be L. Ron Hubbard. I'm not trying to have people start a church. You know what I mean? About this stuff. But I will say this, the world of the Horseman is me kind of exploring and building and maintaining my spiritual world. And it is a world that is rooted in, very African faith systems. Like, it's rooted. I mean, I was raised Catholic, right? But in this exploration, for a comic book, it really tapped me deeper into, the spirituality of who I am, of who I am, who I want to be. How do I define myself? Understanding the power of the ancestors and understanding that, like, I have a legacy to uphold, especially with my family. Good God. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I have a legacy to uphold. Not only from those who have gone on before me, and I'm talking on both sides as well. I'm talking on the Liberian side. I'm talking on the American side as well. There's legacy. You know what I mean? Like, I have people to answer to. You know what I mean? I also have people to answer to in the living world, in the physical world, right? Because I have living legacy to answer to. Like, I look at my family. You know what I mean? Like, I look at my father, I look at my mother, hell, I look at my siblings and what they have done. You know what I mean? And like, damn, I always say this, I am extremely lucky to be born into the family that I'm born into. Because on both sides, it's a family of excellence. It's a family of perseverance. It's a family of hustlers. It's a family of entrepreneurs. It's a family of artists. It's a family of teachers. You know what I mean? It's blue collar family. It's royalty on the Liberian side. You know what I mean? It is hood again on both sides, not only on the American side, but Grona on the Liberian side, but at the same time, it's also elegant and refined. Right? And that's the legacy that I have to uphold. You know what I mean? All angles. Right? And so that's how, and I express that through the Horsemen. The Horseman is that's my thing. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? That's my contribution to the family and to the legacy.
And I think writing about the African spirituality, and you mentioned voodoo, we can unpack a lot of the nonsense that's been talked about it, and all the lies and about it, and we can bring it out, and so we can get people talking about it. And just by reading it, what really is voodoo, and what are the orishas, and then they're asking questions, and then from there you can go and learn more.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, like for me, like my book is quote unquote fiction. Yes, definitely. You know what I mean? Like, don't use the Horsemen in terms of, if you are researching historical African myths, the Horsemen is not your one-stop shop for it. You know what I mean? Because I use the faith systems of the continent extremely, very liberally. However, even though I use them liberally, I always use them correctly. So if you want to know more about it, again, I call it the Jack Kirby effect, right? It's right, in Norse mythology, Loki and Thor are not brothers. It's Loki and Odin. You know what I mean? Like, they're differences. However, just like, looking at that as a launch point to like say, okay, I know this is based on, these stories. Let me look at the original stories. Let me see what else is going on there. And so, I approach the Horsemen the same way that I looked at other books or comics, which had concepts in there. I was like, that's interesting. Let me know more about that concept. And yeah, definitely, that was on purpose. I was doing that with African spirituality and mythology. That was on purpose, because when I was doing when I started the Horsemen back in 1997, no one was using the Orishas as a historic, as a heroic model. Nobody were thinking of using the Orishas as superheroes. And that's facts. That's not me being arrogant. You can look it up, you know what I mean? Well, some people was like, well, they had an Orisha in Fury of Firestorm, but he was not a major character and he was depicted as a villain. Yes, I know this. Again, this is me being the educator and historian. When I say that the Horsemen was the first comic that used the Orishas as superheroes, that's facts. There were other books that, they had the Black heroes, yes, and it was the whole Egyptology, and we all came from Egypt, blah, 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 blah. That was another reason why I focused on the Orishas for the Horsemen. Because number one, our people who came across the ocean during the transatlantic slave trade were not Egyptian, came from West and Central Africa. So that's why I was like, with the Horsemen, I wanted to deal with the faith system that our people, like literally our people came from. Not this fantasy of like, Egyptian, oh, we was kings and queens, that sort of thing. I wanted to be different from that path. You know what I'm saying? Also, the reason why I focused on African mythology and the Orishas in particular was because when I was developing the Horsemen and doing this thesis, I did say, yes, I wasn't of the mindset that saying like, oh no, there are no great Black heroes, blah, 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 blah. I was like, no, there have been plenty of great Black heroes, right? What I said is that there wasn't an iconic superhero team of black characters in one place. And that's what I wanted to do. And in order for me to do that, I had to understand that the root of the superhero is rooted in mythology. The classic superhero is rooted in either, Greco-Roman mythology, Judeo-Christian faith, you know what I mean? Or some like gross appropriation of Asian mysticism, or even a gross appropriation of like Egyptology, so on and so forth, right? So in order to be different in understanding that the superheroic myth is based on mythology, I was like, all right, I need to go to the root. Let me go to African mythology. Let me go to the faith systems of of our people. You know what I mean? In order to make this book authentic, in order to make these characters iconic, and in order to make them iconically free from the gaze, free from the taint of the other, in order to make it unapologetically Black. That's what I had to do for that.
So now I guess it's a great opportunity. Now we have the African diaspora around the world who want to read these stories, who want to hear about it. And recently I've heard more people talk about, African history more than I've ever heard. I got my mum who's from Trinidad and Tobago looking into African history, my friends and so on. And to look at it through stories, through mythology, through comics, it's a kind of, you said you're not doing it direct, but you're giving the key that we can open the door and go in ourselves. We can then do our own research and find out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm seeing that as well. You know what I mean? I'm seeing that attempt to reclaim, you know what I mean? To reclaim our history. I'm seeing that happening as well. And it's a great thing. You know what I mean? It's a great thing to see happening. It's a great thing to see it happening on this global level. I think now, however, is the time that it should not be mythologized, right? let's really not only do we understand our history more, right? But let's all really like come together and collectively make our future better. That's the thing, right? So, you know, I see people, you know, becoming more aware of their history, but then I also see like some people wanting to divide, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like for instance, over here in the States, you know, we have this ridiculous subdivision of African Americans that want to call themselves ADOS, you know what I mean? Like American descendants of slaves, you know, like separating themselves from the rest of the African diaspora because of this whole notion of reparations and so on and so forth. And I'm like, y'all are the dumbest motherfuckers on earth, right? You know, because they're so focused on American reparations, like they're worried that like African immigrants, you know what I mean, would get reparations when their parents were slaves, blah, blah, blah. Or they'll ask questions like, so do you feel that like Jamaica or Haiti or other places get reparations? And I'm like, hell yes, because we have all been fucked over. We all need our reparations. We can only do that if we all work together in tandem to get them. If you don't understand that, then no, you are not pro-Black. Get out of my face. And I am saying that officially. I am saying that on your show. I am saying that with an international audience. So if anybody wants to be mad at me and come at me, yeah, I said it. I said it all day. Prove me wrong. Okay. We only rise when we all rise. That's the only way it's going to work. It's the same thing on a smaller scale, the Black comics movement, as I call it, of which I'm a part of, right? It's only gotten bigger and bigger because of the fact that those of us who are doing it seriously, we talk about each other. We big up each other. You know what I mean? We salute each other. We promote each other, right? So the other people can see that we're promoting each other. And then you have the other people over there that, you know, again, I call them the separatists and the Stonehenge. And the reason why they're like that, it's like, because y'all aren't a part of the community. And it's not like we kicked you out of it. It's like, you do not want to be a part of this community. And so you're out in the wilderness, right? You're out in the wilderness when you could come to Wakanda. And find your support, you know, find those mentors that will make you be better, right? Tap into the network of distribution, of cons, of, you know, with this infrastructure has been set in place in order for us to succeed. But we're only going to do it together. That's the only way it's going to work.
And this network is huge. If we gather the resources, there's so much talent available. And you know what, even you and I just speaking, learning, sharing, bringing together what we know, there is something really amazing in that, you know, that we can lift each other up. And by me bringing you up, it circulates, the energy circulates. We're moving up together.
Yes, exactly. I'm glad you said it, energy. You know what I mean? You know, energy begets energy, right? Positive energy begets positive energy, negative energy begets negative energy. What kind of energy do you want to generate? You know what I mean? That's just what it boils down to, right? You can't be positive if you can't get positive energy if all you generate is negativity. You see what I mean? And yeah, so it is important. I mean, that is another reason why, you know, I said yes to speaking with you today, because again, it's a new, you know, this is a new outlet, you know. Again, thank you, technology, you're in the UK, I'm over here in the States, right? But we are able to have this conversation, which is a conversation which is universal. It's a common conversation, right? And so using the technology that is available to us, right? It's how do you use it and what do you use it for? Do you use it to unite or do you use it to divide? And if you use it to divide, why are you so upset when nobody wants to unite with you? You know what I mean? It's just common sense, isn't it? So it's so I don't know if I'm answering the question in the right way, or I'm just meandering at this point. But yeah, intention is so important. Intention is paramount. I feel that intention is one of those, I'm trying to find the word to describe it. One of those intangibles, right? That can help or hinder you. Okay. What kind of spirit are you putting into your work? What kind of spirit are you putting into your action? Right? I think that can be the difference between success, long-lasting success, genuine success you can be proud of, versus, calamity. Does that make sense?
And I think as well, when you approach your craft, your work with honesty and integrity, just to do your best, that resonates.
Yes.
That resonates with more than anything else, because I guess it's coming through you, allowing the spirit to come through you. So we get back to spirituality here, I guess. Allow it to come through you. And that touches people. And like you said at the beginning, when you found out that people were reading your work, I guess it's because you approached it with honesty and integrity.
Yeah. That's what it was, and that was one of the things that I've always been asking about myself, like, why do people respond to it? Because I'll be honest, as an artist, and I'm looking at my work, when people say, like, you're your own toughest critic, yes, I am. Yes, because I was judging myself by, the people that I look up to, right? But at a certain point, and I'm actually like looking at this now with my current book, because a benefit of the pandemic was that I had the time to really sit down, you know what I mean, and concentrate on what I felt was important, which was Griot, which was this industry, and concentrate on my work and the things that I produce. And I'm really seeing it with this HORSEMEN book right now, right? I am approaching it with this idea of, like, I want to make this the best product possible. You know what I mean? Like, approaching it methodically, you know what I mean? Approaching it with time and care and craft, right? Still keeping myself open for the spontaneity of it. But yeah, doing this with intention, like this is what's going on, like this is what I'm doing, like this is going to be, like, my intention is to make this the dopest book of 2021. That's part of my intention. You know what I mean? I will also say this, part of my intention is slightly petty because of the fact that earlier in this year I had shown a cover, the cover that Sean Hill did. And I showed it on the Facebook, and I had a couple of snarky comments, you know what I mean, from a couple of people, and one of this, like, he's like, oh, it's a horrible name, you should change it. I'm like, I've had it for 20 years. It's been pretty good. He's like, well, I haven't heard of it. I'm like, yeah, that's because you don't look at stuff. You're in the DC or Marvel. It's like, no, that's true. You need a better distributor. I'm like, oh, like Amazon, Barnes and Noble. So those are my distributors. And then I was like, wait a minute. I realized like all of the stuff I'm saying, like, you can easily check me out. You can easily Google my name. You can see the website. You can see I, did little things like, have, my book, The Horsemen, as part of an exhibition at the Smithsonian, little things like that. But I realized that you are fulfilling your role of being a hater. So this is what you're doing. You are hating. You are following that role. So this is what I'm going to do. I am going to make sure that this book that I'm doing now is going to be the best book that you have ever seen. So keep hating. So that's part of the intent with the Horseman Manifest Destiny is now, turning petty into profit. I don't know. You know what I mean? But instead of, shall we say, giving in, using the energy that would have been wasted arguing with someone over something that there's no need to argue about. Like, I don't need to prove, excuse my French, I don't need to prove shit to you because it's already been proven. However, I'm going to use that energy to just remind you why I pissed you off so much, and really if you wanted to be hateful and talk some stuff now, oh, just wait till this book is done. You really gonna be upset now. You really gonna be angry. So so there's a little bit of that intended there, but no, but the majority of it is to put out the absolute best product that I could put out. Put out my vision. You know what I mean? In terms of my work, personally, I feel like I'm at the point now where I can properly put out my vision as I see it in my eyes, because I have embraced the little quirks that I thought were flaws in the way that I create artwork. I've embraced them. You know what I mean? Because they're not quirks. I mean, this is just the way that I make work, right? These are the different aspects of myself that I bring into the work. Like, I bring the aspect of being a designer, you know what I mean? I bring in the aspect of collage, I bring in these different things in order to make my comic book artwork. And no, it doesn't quite look like standard comic book artwork, but then should it? Because this is me, right? And so, so the intent is to, just really be me, unfettered, and pure, right? And I realized that throughout the years, and the reason why, now, like, people are speaking about me in certain tones is because they have responded to, my stubbornness, my tenacity, my genuine spirit, you know what I mean? Of not only the art form of comics, but fostering the community for the art form, so so I'm beginning to accept that, and I think that I'm really beginning to accept that because I have finally accepted that in myself. You see what I mean? Like, I finally accepted myself as an artist. So now it's like, okay, I get it. I get it. I dig it. I just have to continue on, being authentic and being genuine and always making something with intention. okay, I've been doing it so far. You know what I mean? Why stop now? You know?
I think that's a truly transcendent moment when you may have negativity towards you, but you can change it and you can use it as a fuel to then expand yourself. And even in the end, it's just that person's fault. It's got nothing to do with me
at all.
And I liked what you said there. I guess it's the question that is the human question. How can I be me? And what I may see as my quirks and flaws may actually be gifts that I have been given.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's That's it in a nutshell. Yeah. I don't think I can expound on that any more than that. Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you today. I've learned so much, which is the premise of this show, to learn. And I would love to keep in contact with you to find out how you're going on, and maybe in the future have another conversation and see where you are.
Oh yeah, sure. I would love that. I know that we just friended each other on Facebook, so we're definitely connected. So that's for sure. And then of course, I just sent you the website, griotenterprises.com, so that everybody can check that out. We can post that on the show so people can see that. In addition, I also do a podcast called Ghetto of the Mind, which you can find on iTunes, and that's me being DJ. So that's just like that's me just playing tunes, but again, always there's a narrative to it. I'm always telling stories. So even that, I describe Ghetto of the Mind as each episode is the soundtrack to a great movie that you've never seen.
You know what? It's wonderful because a lot of times I play a lot of music. I play a lot of African music, and I like Fela Kuti is my favorite artist. So, and often the music and the creativity, they just go together. The music and whatever I'm doing, they go together. Music is
that's my lifeblood. I can't, you know what I mean? I can't create without music. Like I can't create silently. That just doesn't work, especially as I'm doing this project right now. I need all the tunes that I can get to keep me motivated. So yeah.
So can you please put a link to your podcast as well?
Yeah, hold on just a second. Actually, it can be found on iTunes. So I'm just gonna type in because as a matter of fact, I am going to be posting up a new episode, which is going to be the official soundtrack to the Horsemen Manifest Destiny in the next day or so. So probably by tomorrow will be up.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the conversation.
It's been a pleasure.
All right. You have an excellent evening.
This has been show number 24, Ron Usha Conversation on Art with Jiba Molei Anderson. And I'll put the links in the bottom of the show when it's posted. Thank you very much.
All right, fantastic. And just let me know when it's posted as well so I can share it, okay?
I will do.
All right, excellent.